All right, another in the series of remote recordings. Last time we were reading Chapter 7, The Animal Master. We were on Section 2 regarding Paleolithic mythology, and I had gotten to the point where we were understanding some of the clues that came from the Blackfoot legend of the buffalo dance that would give us an understanding of how these myths and their importance came about. And I'm going to reread some of that so that we have them all in one place, because there are 7 of them. So before commencing the voyage, however, let us pause to examine the clues that our Blackfoot legend of the buffalo dance affords to the mythological atmosphere in which the Paleolithic hunt was carried out. We have 7 clues of particular importance. As in the Ojibwe legend, number 1, in the Ojibwe legend of the origin of maize, so here the action is not placed in the mythological age, but in a world like the present, for let us not be deceived by the speech and magic of the birds and beasts. Such speech and magic are still possible to shamans, and all the chief characters in this legend are endowed with shaman power. The myths and rites of the Australians, to which we were introduced in Part 1, Chapter 2, Section 5, refer to a mythological time fundamentally different from our own, when the ancestors shaped the world. Such myths occur also in America. It is probable, however, that they represent a stage in the development of mythology later than do those personal adventure stories of men and women, animals and birds endowed with shamanistic power. For where shamanism is involved, the mythological age and realm are here and now. The man or woman, animal, tree, or rock possessing shamanistic magic has immediate access to that background of dreamlike reality, which for most others is crusted over. Myths and rites referring to the mythological age when the great mythological event took place that brought both death and reproduction into play and fixed the destiny of life in time through a chain reaction of significantly interlocked transformations, belong rather to the world system of the planters than to the shamanistically dominated hunting sphere. Whenever such myths are found in a hunting society, acculturation from some horticultural or agricultural center can be supposed. In the case of the Australians, the influence came from neighboring Melanesia. Likewise, among the North American tribes, there were massive influences both from the high civilizations of Middle America and from Neolithic and post-Neolithic China after circa 2500 BC, whose influences can be traced not only south of the Yellow River into Indonesia, and from there westward into Madagascar and eastward to Brazil, but also north of the River Amur, into the very zones of northeastern Siberia from which the later North American migration sprang. We are dealing, therefore, in these American myths with an extremely complex and not purely Paleolithic inheritance. Yet many clues, as we have just observed, point to at least one important strain running back even to the period of the Aurignacian caves. 2. The rescuing hero and central figure of the legend was the magpie, without whose work as intermediary nothing could have been accomplished. And we readily recognize in him the bird form or metamorphosis, Kubligan, of the shaman trickster. For the social function of the shaman was to serve as interpreter and intermediary between man and the powers behind the veil of nature, and this precisely is the function of the magpie in this tale. 3. The dead man's return to life was made possible by the finding of a particle of bone. Without this, nothing could have been accomplished. He would have passed into some other form, living for a time as a troublesome spirit, perhaps, and then returning as a buffalo bird or something else. But the particle of bone made it possible to bring him back just as he had been before. We can regard this particle as our sign of the hunter's way of thought in these matters. Just as for the planting context, we took the seed. The bone is not disintegrate and germinate. The bone does not disintegrate and germinate into something else, but is the undestroyed base from which the same individual that was there before becomes magically reconstructed, to pick up life where he left it. The same man comes back. That is the point. Immortality is not thought of as a function of the group, the race, the species, but of the individual. The planter's view is based on a sense of group participation. The hunters, on that sense of an immortal inhabitant within the individual, which is announced in every mystical tradition, and which it has been one of the chief tasks of ontology to rationalize and define. The two views are complementary and mutually exclusive, and in their higher stages of development, in the higher religions, have yielded radically contrary views of the destiny and righteousness of man on earth. For example, in the Hebrew cult, where the myths and rites of the earthbound ancient civilizations of the Near East have been assimilated to a profoundly group-conscious tribal unit, the participation of the individual in the destiny of the group is stressed to such a degree that for any valid act of public worship, not less than 10 males above the age of 13 are required. And the whole reference of the ceremonial system is to the holy history of the tribe, whereas in the yoga of India, where a powerful shamanistic influence from the great steppe lands of the north has done its work, precisely the opposite is the case, and the proper place for a full experience of the ultimate reach of the mystery of being is the utter solitude of a Himalayan peak. Four, the game animals of the legend, refusing the fall and then going over it, were acting under the influence of the great bull, who represents a type of being that plays a prominent role in hunting myths, namely the animal archetype or animal master. We may think of him as comparable to the first bird, whirled clockwise around the head of the Apache Haktin, or the first quadruped from which the others came. Or again, using a philosophical term not as remote from primitive thought as it may seem, we may say that the great bull represents the Platonic idea of the species. He is a figure of one more dimension than the others of his herd, timeless and indestructible, whereas they are mere shadows like ourselves, subject to the laws of time and space. They fell and were killed, whereas he was unharmed. He is a manifestation of that point, principle, or aspect of the realm of essence from which the creatures of his species sprang. For the fact that animal species, in contrast to man, are comparatively stereotyped in their innate releasing mechanisms, has made them excellent representatives of the mystery of permanence in change. Each kind has, so to say, its own group soul. No matter how many individual animals may be shot down, others keep pouring forth and are ever the same. The biblical notion, the Platonic Aristotelian notion, for which conservative Christians have fought a valiant though losing battle, the notion of fixed species, with all of its pseudo-philosophical implications about the timeless will and plan of some master mind, some master puppeteer, and about fixed laws and realms of existence within or supporting this phantasmagoria of apparent change, we can regard as of Paleolithic antiquity, for it holds a prominent place in all primitive thought. 5. Since it appears that when the animals went over the fall, they did so according to the will of their animal master, their flesh is to be regarded as the willed gift of that master to the people, according to the magical order of nature. And this was the primary lesson of the legend for the Blackfeet themselves. Killing buffalo is not against the way of nature. On the contrary, according to the way of nature, life eats life, and the animal is a willing victim, giving its flesh to be the food of the people. 6. But there was a right and a wrong way to kill. The girl revived her father by means of the magic of the rescued piece of bone. And when the great bull saw that the people's magic was strong enough to bring back to life those apparently dead, he communicated to them the magical dance and ritual chant of the buffalo, by which the animals killed in the buffalo drives might be returned to life. For where there is magic, there is no death, and where the animal rites are properly celebrated by the people, there is a magical, wonderful accord between the beasts and those who have to hunt them. The buffalo dance properly performed ensures that the creatures slaughtered shall be giving only their bodies, not their essence, not their lives. And so they will live again, or rather live on, and will be there to return the following season. The hunt itself, therefore, is a rite of sacrifice, sacred and not a rawly secular affair. And the dance and chant received from the buffalo themselves are no less a part of the technique of the hunt than the buffalo drive and acts of slaughter. Human sacrifice, such as we found in the plant-dominated equatorial domain, where an identification of human destiny with the model of the vegetable world conduced to rites of death, decay, and fruitful metamorphosis, we do not find among hunters unless there has been some very strong influence from the other zone, as for example in certain rituals of the Pawnee. The proper sacrifice for the hunter is the animal itself, which through its death and return represents the play of the permanent substance or essence in the shadow world of accident and chance. One may hear in the chant of the dancing buffalo, therefore, slow and solemn, ponderous and deliberate, as is fitting to such great beasts, a Paleolithic prelude of the Lord Vishnu, a Paleolithic prelude to the great theme of the Hindu Bhagavad Gita, the mystical song of the Lord Vishnu, the cosmic dreamer of the cosmic dream. Know that by which all of this is pervaded to be imperishable. Only the bodies, of which this eternal, imperishable, incomprehensible self is the indweller, can be said to have an end. Or the words of the Greek sage Pythagoras, all things are changing, nothing dies. The spirit wanders, comes now here, now there, and occupies whatever frame it pleases. From beasts it passes into human bodies, and from our bodies into beasts, but never perishes. Compare the caribou Eskimo, Igjigurjuk. Pinga, he said, naming the female guardian of the animals, to whose realm the powerful shamans go when they seek to increase a failing food supply, looks after the souls of animals and does not like to see too many of them killed. Nothing is lost. The blood and entrails must be covered up after a caribou has been killed. So we see that life is endless. Only we do not know in what form we shall reappear after death. 7. It is to be noted, finally, that the social organization of the Blackfoot tribe itself was based on the hierarchy of the All-Comrades Society, which is supposed to have been founded following this adventure. Grinnell has given a list of other orders of this, a list of the orders of this hierarchy, and they were known at the time of his visit. Little birds, boys from 15 to 20 years old. Pigeons, men who have been several times to war. Mosquitoes, men who are constantly going to war. Braves, tried warriors, all crazy dogs. Men about 40 years old. Raven bearers, not described. Dogs' tails. Old men, 2 societies, but they dress alike and dance together. Horns, bloods, societies with peculiar secret ceremonies. Soldiers, not described. Bulls, a society wearing the bulls' heads and robes. And so it appears that, just as in the great creative period of the hieratic city-state, a game of identification with the round dance of the planets in the heavens led to an organization of society in which the notion of a macrocosmic, calendrically rendered celestial order supplied the mythology, according to which the mesocosm of the state was composed, and as in the tropical areas where the plant world supplied the chief sustenance for mankind and the chief model of the mystery of life, a game in which young men and women, identified with the first victim of the mythological age, supplied the base and focal episode of a group coordinating ceremonial structure. So here, the game of identification was played in relation to the animals, and in particular those upon which the life of the human society depended. And the game was that of a mutual understanding supposed to exist between the two worlds, realized and represented in rites, upon the proper performance of which depended the well-being of both the animals and their companions and co-players, men. This game provided the basis for the idea of the totem, to which so much attention was given by anthropologists in the late years of the 19th century. That every appearance of an animal anywhere, in myth or rite, was interpreted as a vestige of totemism, whereas actually totemism is but one aspect or inflection of a larger principle, which is represented equally well in the animal master and in the animal guardian or personal patron. In a totemistically conceived society, the various clans or groups are regarded as having semi-animal, semi-human ancestors, from which the animal species of like name is likewise descended. And the members of the clan are prohibited from both killing and eating the beasts who are their cousins, and from marrying within their totem group. Many North American Indian tribes, and most Australian, are totemistic, and there is reason to believe that the idea goes far back into the past. However, it does not exhaust by any means the modes of relationship of the hunting world to that of their neighbors and companions in life, the beasts. For the animals are great shamans and great teachers, as well as co-descendants of the totem ancestors. They fill the world of the hunter, inside and out. And any beast that may pass, whether flying as a bird, trotting as a quadruped, or wriggling in the way of a snake, may be a messenger signaling some wonder, perhaps the transformation of a shaman, or one's personal guardian, come to bestow its warning or protection. So we'll stop there, and next time we'll pick up with section 3, the ritual of the returned blood. Thank you for joining me.